Behind the glitz, the premieres, and the flawless magazine covers, Demi Moore's love life tells a story very few truly understand. It's a story of passion, betrayal, heartbreak, and a woman constantly reinventing herself under Hollywood's harsh spotlight. From marrying a rock star in her teens to becoming one half of a Hollywood power couple, and later finding herself in one of the most talked-about relationships of the 2000s, Demi's journey through love is as complex as it is captivating. But how did a small-town girl from Roswell, New Mexico, end up navigating some of the most turbulent romances in Hollywood history? Let's rewind the clock. It's the late 70s. Demi, just 16, is a rebellious teenager searching for stability. That's when she meets Freddy Moore, a musician almost 12 years older than her. While the age gap raises eyebrows today, back then, it was brushed off as just another rock and roll romance. By 18, Demi was walking down the aisle. But behind the smiles, there were cracks in the foundation. In her memoir, she admits she cheated on Freddy the night before the wedding, a move she now sees as a sign of deep insecurity and fear of abandonment. Still, she kept his last name Moore, even after their divorce, unknowingly building the brand that would define her career. But that teenage marriage wouldn't be her last attempt to find love and stability. And as the 1980s rolled in, a young Demi Moore was about to enter a world far more complicated and far more public. By 1984, Demi had started building her acting career and landed a role opposite a then up-and-coming actor, Jon Cryer, in the film No Small Affair. The two developed a brief romance, one that Demi would later describe, somewhat inaccurately, as taking Jon's virginity. But here's the twist: decades later, Cryer publicly corrected the story with a good-natured laugh, saying she hadn't, and that the relationship was short-lived, but fondly remembered it wasn't a love story for the ages. But it reflected where Demi was emotionally at the time: young, successful, and still figuring out who she was in a world that constantly wanted to define her. But then came Emilio Estevez, and suddenly, Demi's love life was headline news. In the set of St. Elmo's Fire in 1985, Demi crossed paths with Emilio Estevez, Hollywood royalty and the poster boy of the Brat Pack era. Their chemistry was instant. Within months, they were engaged, planning an elaborate wedding, and sending out invitations to everyone in their circle. But beneath the surface, there was turmoil. Demi discovered that Emilio had been unfaithful and that his ex-girlfriend was pregnant with his child. Heartbroken, she sought the advice of her therapist, who told her bluntly, "If you marry him, you will ruin your life." The wedding was called off, but in true Demi fashion, she managed to remain friends with Emilio in the years that followed. It was a devastating lesson, but also a sign of the resilience she would carry through every chapter of her life. In 1987, while still emotionally untangling herself from Emilio, Demi met Bruce Willis at a premiere. Sparks flew instantly. Bruce, the rising action star from Moonlighting, was charming, funny, and intense. Within just a few months, they were married. First, a whirlwind Vegas ceremony, and then a formal wedding surrounded by their Hollywood peers. It was the kind of story tabloids dream about: the actress and the action hero, deeply in love, building a family together. Over the next decade, they welcomed 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, and became one of Hollywood's most admired couples. But behind the scenes, the cracks began to show. Bruce's struggle with fame, alleged affairs, and his discomfort with long-term commitment strained the marriage. Demi, who craved stability and connection, found herself in yet another emotional battle. By the late 90s, the marriage ended. And yet, in a rare Hollywood twist, Bruce and Demi managed to remain close friends, co-parenting their daughters with grace, a dynamic that still amazes fans today. But Hollywood wasn't done with Demi. What came next was a love story that would dominate headlines and divide public opinion. And then came Bruce, the man who would catapult her into the center of Hollywood's brightest and harshest spotlight. Spring 2003. Demi Moore, now 40, meets Ashton Kutcher, a 25-year-old rising star known for that 70s show. The age gap, 15 years, instantly made them one of the most talked-about couples in the world. For Demi, Ashton represented something more than just a new romance. In her own words, he was a do-over, a chance to relive the youth she felt she'd lost during her early marriages and the intense pressures of Hollywood. For a while, it was perfect. Red carpets, joint projects, and playful social media posts painted the picture of a modern, blended family. But behind the curated images was real pain. Demi suffered a heartbreaking miscarriage, an event that sent shockwaves through their relationship and deepened her insecurities. Rumors of Ashton's infidelity began circulating, whispers that were eventually confirmed when he was caught in multiple scandals. By 2011, the marriage crumbled. The divorce, finalized in 2013, marked one of the most painful chapters of her life. Still, that relationship reshaped Demi's public image. Suddenly, she wasn't just a Hollywood icon. She was a woman confronting heartbreak, addiction, and self-discovery in front of the entire world. But if there's one thing Demi Moore has taught us, it's this: she doesn't stay down for long. Through every chapter, Freddy, John, Emilio, Bruce, and Ashton, one thing remains constant: Demi's ability to rise, rebuild, and redefine herself. Her memoir, Inside Out, strips away the glitz and lays her story bare. She speaks openly about the insecurities that shaped her choices, the pain of losing herself in relationships, and the slow, steady process of finding her voice again. Today, Demi stands not as a woman defined by her partners, but as someone who turned her scars into strength. And maybe that's why her story still captivates us, because behind the Hollywood lights and the headlines, there's something deeply human about her journey. So, what do you think? Is Demi Moore's love life just another Hollywood saga, or is it a story about the universal search for love, identity, and healing? Drop your thoughts below, because this conversation is far from over.